Hey everybody, what's up? I'm here with Roosevelt Benjamin, aka Ro, one of the biggest and well-known people in the Erie area. Was an athlete extraordinaire, big part of the community, very well known. Ro, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, Mo. Thanks for having me.
Good. It's a pleasure to have you here today. We've been knowing each other a long time since childhood, man.
Definitely.
I'm looking at you now, man. You look like you can still play ball right now. What are you doing to keep yourself in such good shape?
About 5 to 6 days a week, I'm in the gym. 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Just getting a lot of reps. I actually slimmed down, dropped 60 pounds. So I just like my new eating regimen. And, the actually working out is like a mental relaxation for me. So once I start enjoying it, my body starts transforming. I like it. So that's what I do now.
So is that important to you? To keep yourself in shape still, or?
Yeah, it's very important because I've seen a lot of people my age or younger who actually don't do it, and you start to notice like their mental actually goes out the door as long as as long with their physical. So
Right.
I just think it's the physical, mental, all that whole aspect of working out mentally and physically keeps you going.
Right, I agree because being working in the education and you working with people yourself, sometimes that can be stressful. So I used to work out at night, and that would allow me to go back in the next day and work with the kids and have a clear mind. Because the days I didn't do that, I used to kind of take it out sometimes on the kids. I think so that workout would clear my mind, man.
That's basic. That's definitely how it works. I work in a mental health field now. I'm a mental tech, mental counselor. So I got clients, 2 or 3 different clients, different degrees on the spectrum. So once I leave the gym, I'm completely relaxed, full of energy, ready
Right.
to take on my everyday task. And it's not fair to them if I'm, holding something for my last client or my last friend. You know what I mean? Actually, going into their
Right,
problems.
right.
So basically, in this field, you're a problem solver. Just
Right.
to, help them get through every day and get them acclimated back in the community.
Right. So let's jump right into this, real man. We're here to talk about your life today. You can tell me if you tell me where you grew up, what city you grew up in, what state you grew up in, that type of stuff.
Definitely grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. I love and I rep 814. So I'm from the east side of Erie, Pennsylvania. A lot of stuff, or a lot of people didn't know. Like they call it the neighborhood, they call it the hood. But one of my old heads, which was Eugene Husband, which is Fats, looked up to him. He helped raise me. How he came up with the word hood was on our jerseys. We used to always play basketball, and he sponsored us, and we were called the neighborhood homies. And for short, one of the places where we were playing just put hood up, and we sort of took it and ran with it. It's nothing that we called or it was a bad thing or anything, but that's actually where 22nd and 23rd in German was actually called. That is basically the original hood of Erie, Pennsylvania.
Right. So that's how the name came about. Was that in the 80s or the 90s when that came up?
That was basically the early to mid 80s. That's actually how.
Okay.
I think it might have been Burton Summer League. Might have
Okay.
been Rob Britton who actually called it the hood.
Right, right.
So I think that's where it began. At.
Okay, so that's where that name came from. So growing up for you at home in the hood area, what was it like for you, or what was that like growing up over there?
It was tough, man. It really was, especially being one of the younger kids in that neighborhood. It was the booming of the crack. It was prostitution. It was fights. It was everything. My mom, to go back as far as that, my mom, my uncles. We had our family was I ain't gonna say tied in with drugs, but we had a bad run with drugs in our family, usage and everything. So I seen it all. I've been through it all. And one of the main things that actually sort of kept me out the fire was my grandmother was just solid in the community, and she didn't care what my uncles, my mom, or whoever did. She was just like, hey, if you're gonna do what you're gonna do, I need them kids at my house. You know what I mean? So she was a big part. So sometimes where we had my grandmother, my grandfather, was sometimes we had like 20 people in a 3-bedroom house, and
Right.
we thought it was the biggest house in the world, and everybody else did too. So
Right.
we were, living comfortably, we thought. So
Right, right.
that's how I actually grew up.
So your grandmother kept you, was very important in keeping you from going into that life yourself, basically.
Yeah, it was. She was big until I got a little older, and stuff started wearing on her, and it was. I shouldn't say I did it because I had to, but it was stuff that needed to be done, and she couldn't do it for everybody. Mm-hmm. So she was definitely the rock for me.
Right. So growing up in the hood, like you mentioned fights, prostitution, drugs. In that era, like crack was coming in the area big time. Seems like a tough environment. What did that teach you, like about life growing up in an area like that?
Growing up in that area at that time, as a young black man, we just thought it wasn't fair, because I did have quote unquote white friends outside the community, and when I did go with the Craig Fomages, the Jed Ryans, the John Trokeys, the Keith Nieces that I did play sports with, like they lived a great life.
Right.
And then when I had to get dumped, I ain't gonna say dumped, when I had to come back into the hood, like it was unfair, like profiling, getting beat by police. You always seeing people getting chased by police, and at the same time, I seen purse snatching. I seen us doing bad, but that was us. Basic living life. So I just thought it was just unfair.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Is some of that stuff that people get into like survival? I mean, is it like what they have to do to survive? I mean, obviously those friends you had outside of that didn't have to do that type of thing. But growing up in that area, in a hood type area or in an inner city, is that sometimes like survival skills? I mean,
when you leave off your porch or you leave out that front door, you go into survival mode. Like, sometimes you don't know where your next meal coming from. You don't know where your next piece of shelter is. You know what I mean? You don't know where your next sneakers or, you know what I mean? I did have a little better than everybody else because the neighborhood hustlers were protective of me. Like, they wouldn't let me do anything. They would buy me whatever I wanted. You know what I mean?
Right,
but
right.
I had to, I think that was the everything behind what I did and why I played so hard and why I played so many sports is it was just the hunger in me. You know what I mean?
Right.
The fight. You know what I mean? So that's definitely how.
So who are some of the? I hear the term hood pioneers, hood legends. Who are some of the hood pioneers and legends you?
We definitely have to open it up with Creek, which is Lamar Williams. That was definitely my old head. He was a professional boxer. We had Bruce Big Daddy Wayne. He was another one of the cats from my neighborhood who looked out for me. We had my brother Merle, which is Scooby. He actually works at East High with the kids now. Eugene, which is Fats. You know what I mean? His brother 40. Yeah, Hard Rock, which is my cousin Shannon. Big Fat Motorboat. You know what I mean? Not to be disrespectful, that's just what we call
yeah,
them.
Right.
And those were the people who, if they see me in a bad space, they were just, pull me to the side. Hey, come on, you tripping.
Right.
Like, get this together. What you need? Some Jordans? All right. You need to get this. You need to be at school for 5 straight days. I need you to give me 20 points a game. You know what I mean? So it was always that incentive. LL, you know what I mean? Which is Lionel Williams. Like, those are all the ones who, took care of me.
Right. That's great, man, that you had that. So let's go into your sports life. How did you get into sports, and what sports did you play growing up?
Actually, baseball was it for me. Go to the meat market, big field, and Chantel Hilliard, which is the executive director at the Booker T. We were all close friends. We grew up within, a block from each other, and we all go out there and play baseball. And everybody was like, why don't y'all go get on the team? We all got on the team, and we won. No telling how many games in a row, never been heard of. You know what I mean? So that we did that. I played football. I wrestled. Definitely played basketball. So I did basically every sport that we can. I mean, that's what we didn't have entertainment systems to go play sports. So our thing was either to run up and down the street or play sports. So you might see 30 or 40 of us in the meat market playing tackle on the cement. So it wasn't tackle on the street, so it wasn't a big thing.
Right. Were you always pretty? Did it always come easy to you? Like, were you always physically gifted compared to other kids? I mean, that type of thing, or
Like I said, I was probably the youngest in that era, so I never played with nobody my age.
Oh, okay.
Everybody was, 6 or 7 years older than me.
right?
I mean, I'm playing with my brother John, who's, a couple years older than me. I'm playing with my brother Scoob, who's 51. I just turned 45 yesterday, but those are the guys I played with. So when I actually started playing, it was so much easier. It was hard for me to play or score a touchdown, but I played hard.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did actually play in my age group, I just dominated.
You dominated, right?
And then Spoon, which is a Spoon Summer League, it's my godfather. So Spoon, he was like, bro, you're never going to play with your age ever. And so at 13 and 14, I was playing with the 18-year-olds. And it was coming easier every year. And, the 18-year-olds dropping off, but I'm just now turning 14. I'm just now turning 15. And then when I think I turned 16, he had me playing with the adults. Mm-hmm. So basketball was definitely easy for me because of how, Spoon sort of brought me along in that aspect of it.
Right. So in Erie, what high school? So I know you were like a highly touted athlete coming out of middle school. What high school did you start off at in Erie?
I think I went to Tech for maybe a semester. Got into some trouble and ended up getting shipped off to Glen Mills. So I did go to Glen Mills for 3 years, I think. So that's where I spun my high school until my senior year. I mean, and my dream, just hearing everything that was going on when I was away for those 4 years, my dream was to get back to y'all because Mo True, Kevin Clem, Rob Barney, all my childhood friends.
Eric Quinn, everybody.
Eric Quinn, I mean, they were dominating. I'm like, oh, those are my cats. Like, I'm about to get on the field with them.
We don't want to stay title.
Right. So, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm shooting forward to get back home. I'm a year out. I put in a petition. They turned it down. You know what I mean? So I actually missed that year that y'all had y'all running for the Western Finals. And then I came in they gave me early release for the summer of 95, I think. And that's the year I came in and played with Lamar, one of my closest friends now. So.
Right. Yeah, if I'm going back to that year, man. I mean, we had a great team, but if we'd had you too, it would have been unfair.
Yeah,
seriously.
Definitely.
We'd have definitely won a state title that year. So let's go back. So you said you spent a semester at Tech, and then you went to Glen Mills. You want to talk about what happened to get you down there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of open book. When I was young, like I said, it was I hit a rough patch in middle school. I wasn't going to school. I wasn't doing anything. I was hustling. I ain't gonna lie. I was doing a lot of bad things I shouldn't have been doing, running with a lot of bad people, and I ended up getting charged with conspiracy of a drug ring. So it was like the first time the feds ever came into Erie, and I was the youngest ever charged.
How old was you at that time?
I was 14, I think.
Okay.
I think I was 14, 13 or 14. But I was the youngest ever charged in the Fed. So they said, we're going to give you juvenile life. They gave one of the guys 30 years or 25 years. They gave a lot of them 7 and a lot of them 5, a lot of them 3. And they didn't know what to do with me, sort of. So I just ended up, in that situation, I ended up going to stay with Spoon. Spoon took great care of me and just told me, like, son, everything going to be all right. So, you know what I mean? I believe in trusting the Spoon. And they end up, sending me off to Glen Mills. He said it's a good place. And make it so bad, I didn't know the politics in sports and the politics in life until I actually got sent to Glen Mills. Because what happened at Glen Mills, it was a bidding war from Glen Mills and the one outside of Sharon. I forgot it.
I know what you're talking about too.
It's they're still open, but it's gonna come to my head. But it was a bidding war between them, and they were only taking top athletes in the country. Mm-hmm. And Glen Mills won the bidding war, and it was so crazy. I was at home because George Jr. They couldn't. Emmett Hill couldn't house me because I was a federal inmate. Right. So I had to stay with Spoon. So Spoon just kept track of me and made sure I was on the right path. And then one day they called and said Glen Mills is on the runway in Erie, PA, on plane Mike Wayne. He's a friend of the family. Mike Wayne was
Right,
working
right.
at the Mills.
Yep.
He picked up. He came, grabbed me, got on the plane in Erie, flew to Philadelphia, or Conquerville, PA, and that's where I started my Glen Mill career.
So what was it like at Glen Mills? Because I mean, it was it kids from everywhere or just kids from Pennsylvania? What was it like? What was your time
Glen
like?
Mills, when I was there I think I got there in 91, somewhere around there. It was about 5,300 people there, and they were from the Bermuda Triangle, Germany, Australia, Russia, the Czech Republic, like anywhere, Africa, anywhere you can think of kids being bad, ambassadors, president's sons. This is where they sent them. They paid big money for their kids to go there and get disciplined by this staff.
Right.
So if you were there, you had all those prestigious, kids there, but then you had all these top athletes who were gangbanging, but they were great athletes. They were getting into drug dealers, gun sellers,
All kinds of stuff, right?
All kinds of stuff, whatever you can imagine, killers, everything, right there in that. You know what I mean? And when I got there, I'm already hearing all this stuff, but Glen Mills wasn't what I heard. Like you got blood. This is when the real Bloods and Crips from LA and San Diego and you know what I mean, Pomona. Ain't no fighting. You see Bloods and Crips walking around with each other.
Right.
They really had control of that campus. You know what I mean? And I think the first night I got there, it might have been a soccer game on the soccer field, and the stands is going crazy. It's a team that came in to play us in the Del Val, and it's cheering. I'm like, oh, I didn't landed into, you know what I mean? A good place.
Right.
Mike Wayne introduced me to some coaches. The coaches sort of knew who I was, and that there led into my career at Glen Mills, which I ended up being like, they call it campus exec. That's the highest level of recognition you can get, and it takes about 4 or 5 years to get it. I actually got it in 6 months.
Right.
Because of my athleticism, and I was scared. So I humbled myself, and me humbling myself put me into a great position. And then my athleticism I was the first person to ever start basketball and football at Glen Mills, and it just elevated me to being a campus exec and campus president. So I was the president of 5,300 kids, and basically another staff member. So that's how that took off.
Yeah, I talked to a coach one time. I was scouting the game down there. I think Glen Mills was getting ready to play, or Central was getting to play Altoona, and I think they were playing Glen Mills or somewhere. Glen Mills coach and I was in the stands together, and he asked me about you, and he told me, out of his mouth, he said, "Man, look, I've been here 20 years, and I tell people this all the time." He said, "Roosevelt Benjamin is the best football player I've ever seen in pads." He said, "I don't care if you're talking about Miami, Texas, California." He said he's hands down the best player I've ever seen in pads. So how does that, and a lot of people say that about you, so how does that make you feel when you hear stuff like that?
That's crazy that you just mentioned that, Mo. I was showing my building today before I touch on that, and Brandell came in, and one of Brandell's sons was there. So I came in a little late trying to, I was at work, I had my client. But anyway, I come in, I shake Mr. Brandell's hand, I give him my name. His son's standing there, he's like, "Dang, I knew that was you." So when he say that, his brother-in-law actually was a quarterback at Clearfield when we played against them at Erie High. And this is the guy who broke every record in Pennsylvania, Dan Marino's, Montana's, the Jim Kelly's. He broke and he told me that his brother-in-law said, and he ended up going to playing at Penn State, his brother-in-law, and he said the hardest, the person, what did he say? This is today. He said, the hardest I ever been hit, not by anybody besides Roosevelt Benjamin, like in practice at Penn State or anything, and he was by far the best athlete, and he jumped out on film at us. And to go back to what you said, it's humbling. You know what I mean? But it came easy, and I didn't work hard for it, and I'm mad I didn't. And I used to always see Jamal in my senior year, I used to see them working hard, so hard in the weight room. I never lifted a weight. I didn't do any of that stuff because growing up, my dream wasn't the NFL. And that's sad. My dream was to get out at 22nd and 23rd in German.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Our dreams was a little different than, well, my dreams was a little different, and people who lived in that little bubble was a little different than everybody else's.
The people else who lived in other parts of the city.
Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Steffies, that I know where Steffi lived, and I mean, I looked up to Steffi, you know what I mean? He was one of the best athletes to come out of here by far. You know what I mean? By far. I looked up to Steffi in football and basketball. And that was my dream, to leave that neighborhood. And it wasn't the NFL. So it wasn't me working hard at all. You know what I mean? I didn't lift weights. I didn't do nothing extra besides practice. And half the time I didn't go to practice. You know what I mean? So it's just that when you put us in that position of, you know what I mean? We want to get out. And that's all we want to do is get out and breathe. It's not, you know, the NFL.
So you couldn't see, like if you would have grew up in another environment outside of the hood, not that, and I know you love where you grew up and stuff like that, but if you had grown up somewhere like in another environment around different stuff, your potential that you was born with would have definitely easily taken you to probably a pro career.
It definitely would have, without any question, if I would have got the right leadership. I thought I was getting the right leadership by, you know, them telling me, man, go ahead, go score 20. I'll get you new Jordans and an outfit and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that was cool for that. But I needed to push where, man, get up and go in the morning, go work. Go work a little harder in the gym. Make sure you hit the books. So I wasn't doing it. It was just go to school, score 3 touchdowns, score 2 touchdowns, score 20 points, we're going to give you this. It wasn't going to school, get your education. You know what I mean?
Right.
So everything's a little different for, you know, every situation.
Right.
I mean? And I sort of regret it. And that's why I be trying to give back to these kids so much, because I had the ability, I had the potential, and I had the opportunity. But the only one that failed was me, because I didn't take advantage of it. And I didn't know what was in front of me. And I be trying to teach these kids, like, Division II, Division III, they're not bad places to go. These scouts are paid millions of dollars to go find that gym, that 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick.
Right.
And that's where you're going to find them at, in the PSAC. They call the PSAC the little SEC.
Wow.
Like, we got a lot.
You got guys coming out of there.
I'm a Clarion alum.
Right.
You know what I mean? I love the PSAC. And I know, you know what I mean, we got athletes that come out of there. Every year, we got every roster got somebody with the PSAC,
with the PSAC on it, right?
You know what I mean?
I remember watching a Monday night game. There was like 3 linemen that
like
PSAC.
they call us the baby SEC. So you know what I mean. I enjoy, you know, repping my Clarion, my Golden Eagles.
So I know you got coming out of your senior year. You know, I think I heard like somebody said Joe Paterno said the best football player in Pennsylvania lives in Pennsylvania. He was talking about you. Right. Were you getting looks like D1 looks coming out of?
Yeah, It was Joe Paterno at the kitchen table. I didn't know who these guys was.
Right.
I didn't watch football.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had probably over 50, you know, just letters, just got my grandmother so excited for me.
Right.
But I wasn't excited.
Right.
That didn't excite me. Excite me was still trying to get up out this neighborhood. Like, basically, I didn't know the potential that I had.
Right.
And Michigan State, USC, the UCLAs, John Robinson calling, you know what I mean? It's all these coaches, you know, just blowing the phone up. I think, was he at Rhode Island? I think John Calipari in basketball was at Rhode Island. But he's a Clarion alum. But he was like, yeah, I got some St. Bonaventure for basketball. So I had some Division I basketball.
So you get some basketball offers too?
Yeah, so it just manifested into Pitt. And it was crazy because it was, I'm about to say his name. The head coach was Johnny Majors.
Right.
He was older, but he was a great guy. And the defensive coordinator was a black guy. He's a defensive back coach. And I ain't forgot his name already, but it'll come back. He made it his point during football season to come to every game. And not just to come to every game, he came and sat at the supper table every Saturday or Friday. We played at home.
Wow, okay.
And then after basketball, or when basketball season started, he came into the city, flew, picked my grandmother up. My grandmother cooked him some food.
Right.
And then he drove my grandmother down to the Audi, walked her in, sat and watched the game, walked her back into the house, waited for me to come in, say his piece, and then he left. So that was Tim Lewis. Tim Lewis ended up being the defense coordinator for the New York Giants and everything. So that was, where I was signing.
Right.
So Pitt was where I chose. I was like the number one recruit in Pennsylvania.
Right.
I was top 25 in the country. You know what I mean? So definitely.
Did you end up playing at Pitt at all, or did you?
No, I didn't. Again, back to the SATs. I didn't even go. I blew it off.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I didn't even know how important that stuff was.
Right.
You know what I mean, in my life.
Right.
So I just blew it off. But I love Pitt because I ran into Curtis Martin, which is all Hall of Famer.
Right.
He was going with Tony Braxton, but that was who was showing me on my visit.
Right.
So I jumped right into the Hollywood life. He picked me up at the airport in a BMW. Tony Braxton in the front seat.
Right.
I'm in the back. Like I just get thrusted. I said, "Dang, this life." I said, "Crazy." And what made it so bad was one of my friends from Glen Mills who played tight end, John Jones, actually has signed there, and I didn't know it because we lost track of each other. And I just hung with him for the rest of the weekend, and you know what I mean. So I didn't even take the test. So I did a lot of things with no guidance.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah.
So I know you ended up playing. You did end up playing some college ball. How did that go for you?
I ended up coming back home, going out to California to a Division I junior college, and I tell the kids this story all the time. I had to pay for my first year in college. Out there, it was like $10,000, and my brother, I love my brother, scrapped to death. He came up with $10,000, sent me on my way, and said, "Go make something of yourself."
Right.
So I get out there. I don't got no film. I just heard of this school, and I go out there, and I'm 7th on the depth chart, Mo.
Wow.
Coming from being the man,
Number one recruit in
number
the state
one
of
recruit
Pennsylvania.
in the state, top 25 in the whole country, but I'm out here where I picked this school where Florida didn't have any junior colleges. So the University of Miami, Florida State, all these big time Division I schools, Clemson, all these ACC schools and all them schools send their kids to hide them.
Right.
Won't
People won't get them.
nobody, because we're in Reedley, California. It's just below Fresno. So only people that know about us will be Fresno. So we're there. I'm 7th on the depth chart, Mo. And I couldn't break the depth chart for nothing because I ain't getting no reps.
Right.
I'm not even on the depth chart. They made 6, and then underneath the line that was the end of the paper was Roosevelt Benjamin.
Wow.
And I looked on it, I cried. I called my brother. I said, "Bro, I'm about to come home. Send me some money." He's like, "I don't got no money. I gave it all to you." Like basically, you either gonna walk home or you gonna make something of it, and I'm coming out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I went over there and talked to the coach. I said, "Coach, can I 3 or 4 reps of practice? You know what I mean? And I'll make it worth your while. And I promise you. You know what I mean? All right. We'll make that bet. You know what I mean? So 3 reps turned into 6 reps, 2 days. You know what I mean? And I turn these reps into reps, and I turn these reps into from 7 to 5 to 4 to 3. Before the first game, I was starting, and I was the captain of that defense.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I fought. And I knew my talent, and all these cats was Division I players.
Right.
But you weren't better than me.
Right.
You're never gonna tell me you're better than me.
Right.
If I get some time on this field, I'm gonna show you I'm probably gonna be better than you.
Right.
So that's how that worked out. And I was All-American in my 2 years at junior college. But I wasn't going to classes still.
Right.
I still didn't get the concept. I was just playing football. So that turned over to all these Division I schools out west. SC, Vegas, because Lamar ended up coming out there.
Right, UNLV,
so
right.
Lamar ended up going to UNLV. So they offering Cal, all these big schools, Arizona State, but I only got the 48 credits. You know how many credits I had? I had 22 credits in 2 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They was doing whatever they wanted to do, get me eligible.
Right. They knew your talent on the field. They wanted you to use you on the field, but they wouldn't push you in the classroom.
Right. They didn't care if you went. And we
Right.
were like off campus, so they didn't care. Football coaches dealt with so many pro athletes that come out of our school because we won a national title both years in JUCO. So that was a big thing. And I was 2 credits short from going to Division II. So I came home. Was like, okay, my 2 years up. All right, I'm done playing football.
Right.
I don't want to play football no more.
Right, right.
I mean, I came right back into the streets.
Right.
A friend of mine, Brian Barney. Brian Barney actually came to my house. He was going to Edinburgh. Brian Barney was like, "Bro, what's up? What you doing?" I said, "Man, I'm chilling, man. I ain't doing nothing." He said, "Come out to Edinburgh. I introduce you to the coaches, Terry and Jerry Roberts. I introduce you to the coaches, cuz." I went out there and I didn't like it. And then Ken Nixon, Maurice Goodwine was like, come to Clarion with us for a weekend. Went to Clarion for a weekend. And I liked the coach. I love the coaches. Malin Luke, that's like an extra father figure to me. That was my head coach. So Malin was like, I walked into the office and it was the secretary. And Ken Nixon had walked in the back because he was playing there at the time. And it was like, you got somebody at the front desk. And I told the lady what my name was. I'm like, I'm Roosevelt Benjamin. And she went back. She's like, all right, I'll tell Coach you're here. So this is the head coach. You know, he ain't moving for nobody.
Right.
Man, Luke come jogging up. Roosevelt, where the hell you been? I said, I just don't want to play football no more. He's like, what you doing up here? I said, well, my cousin Ken Nixon and my best friend Maurice Goodwine is here. And I just, was going to come up here and go to school and see what I can get. He's like, you got some money? I said, nah. He's like, we got a lot of money for you. Come back tomorrow. We're going to get you a full scholarship. You want to sign a scholarship? I'm like, all right. And that's how I ended up at Clarion University. I was a 2-year All-American there.
Wow. So everywhere you go, your skills really just came through, man. No matter what level.
No.
Actually, Maurice wanted me to ask this question. He said, ask Ro what his most proudest athletic accomplishment is. So I would give credit to Maurice for that question because I told him I was going to ask him every day. You can come back to it if you want to. Think about it.
I have so many. Well, yeah. I had so many. I come back to that one.
Okay.
That's a good one.
So, Ro, before we stop going to something else, we talked about your sports life. Can you talk about how you want to teach the kids and stuff like that? Can you, because I'm gonna maybe show some of this to some athletes. Right. Can you give us some high school athletes some advice from Ro, youth athletes, high school athletes, college athletes?
I would never tell you not to listen to anyone, but if someone takes the time out to give you those gems, those nuggets, listen. You know what I mean? And I know how important it is for our young athletes coming from our neighborhoods. It don't just have to be the hood, but in the inner city. And I tell people all the time, and I talk to you all. We always talk whenever we see each other. But if I can go into one of these kids' houses and their dad can be like, "What's up, bro?" Give me a hug, give me a handshake, and the mom like, "Hey, bro, how you been?" You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Those are the people that you listen to if they got some advice, because I guarantee you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've been knowing Ro all my life. He's probably one of the best athletes to come out of here." But I don't want to talk to you about my accomplishments because you probably ain't never seen me play a sport or anything. But when I tell you what to do different than what you're doing now, just listen.
Right.
Let me be the one to fall and bump my head or fall down them steps before you do it. Because I've been down this path. And it's hard for people who ain't been down that path that I've been down.
Right.
And their backs facing these walls of murderers, rapists, and everything. And I'm giving you this gem. Like, don't listen to what I tell you. When I tell you you don't need to be doing this, you don't really need to be doing this. And when you're out there and you're playing, like I tell all the kids, how I want you to perform is I want that coach from across the field to make sure he bypassed everybody but number 2 or 22. Hey, Roosevelt, you're the best player I ever seen. I want. That's what I want that coach to tell me. So every game you play like that. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to carry on throughout the state, throughout the country. Like, yo, that guy at Erie High, he played his ass off. He played so hard. He was fair. he just made amazing plays. He just played hard. He never gave up. And you don't have to have a winning record to go to a Division I school or Division II or Division III. And we're not going to sit up and blame no coaches. It's your effort. It's your talent. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I learned that from Tara. Like Tara was, I wish we can go back to the Tara Sauvages, the Minute Georges, the Buffalinos, the Cashones, who quote unquote put their foot up your butt. If you didn't do it right.
Right.
You ain't pulling your helmet off with those coaches.
Right.
Ain't no pulling your helmet off, throwing it down, because the senior class, first of all, was going to do something to you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The leaders and the coaches, we don't need you.
Right.
Like, you're not coming back on this field. I don't care about running, laps, or any of that. Like,
right.
And we have to get back to that. Right. You know what I mean? Because our kids are suffering.
Right.
That, you know what I mean? We need that. We need that push. We need that solid core person. And another quick thing I wanted to talk about was like the Dre Henderson who's coaching. And I tell everybody, he's our community coach. He's the one that everybody needs to rally around. And if you get a spot on his coaching staff, it might not be for coaching. It might be for this one particular athlete who only listens to you. Mm. So when you're out in the community, you see this one particular athlete that you can only reach. Say, I'm doing this favor for Dre.
Right.
And I'm also doing this favor for him. Right. Because I'm probably the only one that can reach him.
Can reach this kid.
I know I tried to, slide into the district and do whatever. I wasn't allowed for whatever reasons, but it never stopped me from talking to these kids, going to every Metro 21 game, every little kids travel football team, and high school games. I'm still going to talk to these kids because I got something to tell them. Right. And I want them to listen. Mm-hmm. So that's how I feel about that situation.
So what about academics? Can you say anything about that? Like the kids out there that saying, man, I'm a good football player, but I hate studying, man. I don't want to go to class. I don't want to,
I have a lot to say about it. And, I mean, at first, I'm a prime example. I know I can play at the next level. I know I could have got a pension. I know I could have retired. I know I could have been all pro at the next level. But it was my fault because I didn't go and get my education. That was one of the reasons why I didn't make it where I should have been, or I wasn't even dreaming of that. And I want these kids to understand, like, dream big. Like, I wasn't dreaming big. I was just dreaming to get out of a little area.
Right.
Dream big. Shoot for the stars. And our kids aren't doing that. I mean, they'll rather, at this point, play with guns, play with weed. Back in those days, we didn't use drugs at that playing sports. Like, it was frowned upon. Like, hey, you smoke weed, yeah, you drink. Like, we didn't do that. Right. So these kids, it's a little different. So, I mean, I always get in the ear, hey, I don't know what you into, but hey, chill, all right, Mr. Rowe, all right, Mr. Rowe. So, you know what I mean? So you always get that.
So let's move into a little bit about, let's go to 2014. So, I know most people probably know you end up getting some prison time in 2014. And we thank you for being transparent, talking about everything, you know what I mean? Do you want to speak about why you got time and how much time did you get? How much time?
Yeah, no problem. I just hit a rough patch in my life, you know what I mean? I was out there just needing money and just selling some weed,